intermediate, after that reflection, to think about one or two people that just like irritate you. It's kind of opposite of being a God's presence, but think about one or two people you were always butting heads with, you just could not get along with, you were always arguing with, you just could not seem to be on the same page with these people. And think about that for a minute.
Okay, and we're going to show you how synergy can help you to better understand and to communicate with these people. Okay, first of all,
let's say we're really hungry. You know, it's breakfast time, we haven't eaten. What are we going to eat? Are we going to eat an egg
or chocolate chips?
Which one's going to be more satisfying? Which one would you rather eat personally?
I would rather eat chocolate chips because they're sweet, they're ready to go, and your egg is just raw.
But my egg is more filling, and I think it tastes better than chocolate chips. What do you guys think? Chocolate. So we all wouldn't eat the exact same thing, but these present a problem. Some kind of problem is what we're going to eat. So rather than standing on opposite sides, saying I'm going to eat this, you're going to eat that, we're going to get on the same side of the room and all look at the problem together. So now we need to come up with a third solution, because the egg is one solution, chocolate chips is another solution. What's a third solution that we could eat that would satisfy all of us?
Eggs with chocolate chips.
Make brownies. Make what?
Make brownies.
Make brownies.
Chocolate chip.
What about chocolate chip cookies?
Does
That'll work too? Yeah, see? Okay, so we came up with another solution that would please all of us rather than just going back and forth.
Okay, and that's what synergy is, when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So instead of just having the chocolate chips and the raw egg, if you put them together, then you get chocolate chip cookies.
So now we're going to kind of dive into synergy and what it's all about. And it really requires you to take a second to establish a true, genuine understanding and an effort to understand the other person that you might be in opposition with. You might be unsure of the end. You might get chocolate chip cookies, you might get eggs chocolate chips. You might not be sure what you're going to end up with, but it's the willingness to take that jump and be adventurous in creating a third solution. So we're going to talk about the levels of communication. I'm going to draw that up. This worked this morning. There. Okay, so the bottom, lowest level, we've got defensive level of communication, and that's when trust and cooperation are at their lowest point. And then this sort of disagreement, you might be really defensive, you might be really protective of your own opinions. It's a win-lose or a lose-win situation. The next step we have is respectful, which is a little bit better, and that brings us to a compromise. So rather than having 1 + 1 = 2, we're compromising, so we only get 1½ in the end. So neither of us are truly satisfied. This is when you're polite, but you're not truly empathetic to the other person. You don't really care about understanding as long as you kind of get your way. The best thing that we have, the best level of communication, is synergy.
And synergy is when there are the highest levels of both trust and cooperation. So it's a win-win for everyone. You combine the emotional bank account, you think win-win, and you seek first to understand others. So instead of having 1 + 1 = 2, you get something greater than that. So 1 + 1 would equal like 4 or 12 or 20. A good example of this is Covey explains an example where there's a husband and a wife, and they want to take their kids on a vacation. The husband has already set up a camping trip to take his kids fishing and has everything lined up and is ready to go. And the wife wants to go visit her mother because she's sick and doesn't know how much longer she'll be around. So both of them have what they want to do. And so to get a good solution, they look at the problem from the same point of view. They're not on opposite sides anymore, and they try to deeply understand each other. They come up with a third solution, which combines the two. They can go camping still, but go camping somewhere that's closer to the wife's mother so that they can both get what they want. They seek first to understand each other, and then it increases the relationship, and both sides get what they want, and the final solution is greater than either of the original solutions.
So this is a really good example of synergy when both sides really want to understand each other because they care about each other, and there's a true empathy right there. Covey talks about negative synergy, and he talks about when you're driving down the road and you've got your foot on the gas and your foot on the brake, and instead of taking your foot off the brake so that you can go smoothly, you just put more gas, more pressure, which just messes everything up. And you add more, a lot of times we do this in arguments, we add more information to our side of why we're right, and we add more pressure rather than just letting up and trying to understand so that things can move more smoothly. So a lot of times we see confrontation or conflict when the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain aren't working together, and a lot of people are really left brain people, and a lot of people are really right brain people. But Covey talks about bringing these two sides together, and so ideally in a synergistic situation or relationship, you would see the intuitive, creative, and visual right brain working with the analytical, logical, verbal left brain. And so this, he talks about, is really the best way to fit real life situations, because life, he says, isn't logical, it's emotional, and there are all kinds of other aspects going into situations and confrontation that we have. He also talks about how important it is to value the differences among all of us and to actually value other people's opinions rather than just shutting them down. So he talks about how we all differ mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So we're not always going to see the same things the same ways. We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And the things that shape us affect the way that we see the world. So it's really important to understand the ways in which others see the world. And this just overall just adds to your own benefit, your own ability to understand and your own knowledge personally. So now we have the force field analysis that Covey talks about.
There are different forces that are like acting upon us. There's driving forces, which are positive and reasonable and logical and economical. And then in opposition to that, you have the restraining forces, which are the negative, the emotional, the illogical, and like the unconscious. So what you want to do is you want to create the equilibrium right here in between the two so that you can progress in your task and your situation. In order to do this, you need to utilize the motive from habit 4 of thinking win-win, the skill of habit 5, so you understand others first before and the interaction of habit 6, which is the synergy, to work against the restraining forces. This creates an atmosphere where people are engaged in the problem and they want to be part of the solution. So rather than just seeing a problem and like ignoring it and thinking, oh, other people will take care of it, they really want to be involved and like embody the solution. So ultimately, the goals are shared and new solutions are formed that are creative, and the driving forces advance the group as a whole. So you can't control the paradigms of others, you can't control how they think, how they react, but one thing you can do is you can deal with this energy within your own circle of influence. So you can act first to change yourself and to grow and to mature, and to do that you need to respect both sides of your own nature. You have the analytical left brain and the creative right brain, so instead of ignoring one, you need to combine both and be respectful of both of those. The way to make a change in yourself will promote others and encourage them if you're a catalyst for creativity. So that's the third solution of being synergistic and wanting it to change and really pushing that creativity. So if you encourage others by expressing your own ideas and being open and free about that and sharing your feelings in a positive way, then that's the best situation. When someone disagrees with you, you don't just ignore them and say, okay, you're wrong. Like, you don't think what I think, so I'm just going to ignore you. You need to affirm them and be respectful because they think what they think for a certain reason. And so you want to try and understand where they're coming from.
So synergy, Covey puts it, is the crowning achievement of all of the previous habits that we've talked about. So it's ultimately bringing everything that we've learned together so that we can work with the end in mind and work for a win-win solution. And it involves teamwork, team building, development of unity, and creativity with other people. Because you have to be creative and adventurous and be willing to work together to find that third solution that you can all agree upon. Are there any questions so far? No? Okay, pretty clear. Okay, so now think back to those few people that you just can't get along with, you just are always butting heads with. And we would really challenge you guys. How can you seek to better understand them? How can you understand their point of view? Not to say that they're necessarily right or that you take on their point of view, but just that you understand it better. How can you grow to see the concerns underlying that person's position? And ultimately, how can you communicate with them rather than communicating at them, rather than adding that gas and adding that pressure and information that supports your side? How can you communicate with them to come up with the third solution? So that would be our main challenge to you guys this week and ultimately for the rest of our lives. Taking on all of these habits that we've learned to become synergistic thinking kind of people.
And so that you don't forget what synergy is, that synergy is when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We have chocolate chip cookies. Pass those around, take one and pass it on. So be synergistic.
You guys don't have any other questions? No?